Hello, my dear students. Today we'll be discussing all the possible questions that could appear from the story The Necklace, which is written by Guy de Maupassant. Are you ready? Let's begin. The first question: what kind of a person was Madame Loisel? And why was she always unhappy? Okay, so Madame Loisel was a pretty and young lady, but she believed that due to the error of destiny, she was born into a family of clerks. So, Madame Louiselle believed that instead of being born in a rich or an elite family, she was accidentally, due to the error of destiny, born into a family of clerks. She suffered continuously from the feeling that she was born for all delicacies and luxury, but she was surrounded by poverty around her. So those things tortured her and angered her, due to which she was always unhappy. So she was a person who believed that she was supposed to be born for all luxuries and richness, but she was accidentally born into poverty and she did not deserve such a life. Next question. Why did she allow herself to marry a petty clerk in the office of the Board of Education? A. She had no dowry and no means to become famous. B. She fell in love with a clerk and love is blind. C. She had no means to marry a rich or a distinguished man. Or D. She was forced by her family and she could not refuse. So why did she allow herself to marry a petty clerk? Have you marked your answer? Yes. The first answer is because she had no dowry and no means to become famous. And there is one more answer. She had no means to marry a rich or a distinguished man. That is why she had to allow herself to marry Mr. Louisel. Next, all these things tortured and angered her. Which among this is not mentioned in the story? So, three options are mentioned and one is not mentioned, and you have to identify which one it is. Is it option A? She suffered from the poverty of her apartment. B. She suffered when she looked at the shabby walls. C. She suffered because the building was poorly maintained. Or D. She suffered due to the worn out chairs. And the answer that is not mentioned in the story is option C. She suffered because the building was poorly maintained. This is not mentioned in the story, where all the three other answers are. Moving to the next one. She would think of elegant dinners, of shining silvers, thought of exquisite food served in marvelous dishes. She loved only those things. So, what is apparent about Madame Louiselle from the above lines? So, Madame Louiselle had rich taste and big dreams. She was greedy for materialistic possessions and believed that she was supposed to be born into a rich elite family, but through the error of destiny, she was born into a poor family of clerks. So she was a greedy person. She was into materialistic possessions and she had rich taste. Next, when the husband uncovered the tureen with a delighted air and said, "I know nothing better than that." What does it tell about his character? A. He is a simple and content man. B. He was really hungry. C. He had exactly the opposite character of his wife. Or D. He hated complicated dishes and luxury. So there are two options that are right. First is he was a simple and content man. Correct. Second is he had exactly opposite character of his wife. Wife wanted luxury, she wanted delicacies and richness in his life, but he was exactly the opposite. He was very simple and he was content with what he had. Why did Madame Louiselle not like to visit her rich friend? A. The friend was rude and snobbish. B. Visiting her made Louiselle feel envious and resentful. C. Madame Louiselle did not like her friend's family as they made her feel inferior. Or D. Her husband was handsome and Madame Louiselle was jealous. So, what was the reason Madame Louiselle did not like to visit her rich friend? That is because visiting her made Madame Louiselle feel envious and resentful. Next, one day the husband returned cheerfully with a large envelope. What did it contain? A. Tickets to a holiday destination. B. Invitation to the Queen's palace. C. Invitation to the minister's residence. Or D. The bill of a beautiful necklace. And the answer is invitation to the minister's residence. Next, how did she react when he gave her the envelope? A. She threw the envelope spitefully upon the table. B. She was delighted just as the husband had hoped. C. She was happy to attend such a fine occasion. Or D. She was silent, stupefied, and dismayed. So, what was her reaction? It was A. She threw the envelope spitefully upon the table. Now, the husband was silent, stupefied, and dismayed when he saw his wife's reaction. And she was definitely not happy. Okay, next one. Why did she cry and refuse to go to such an occasion that was very select and a fine one? So, do you know why did she refuse? Yes, let's go through the answer. She looked at him with an irritated eye and declared irritated that she had nothing to wear. So, she was irritated that she did not have any dress to wear for such a fine occasion. Then, when the husband suggested her to wear the dress she wears to the theatre, she began to weep and then controlled her vexation. So, what is vexation? Feeling of being annoyed. And replied that she had nothing proper to wear and hence to give the invitation to someone else or to some colleague whose wife is better fitted than she was. So, this is why she cried and refused to go to the occasion. Why did he turn pale when the wife asked for 400 francs for the dress? A. He did not have that much money. B. He could not imagine dresses costing that much. C. He had saved just this sum to buy a gun. Or D. He was an economical clerk and did not want to spend on a simple dress. Have you identified the answer? Yes, because he turned pale because he had saved just that sum to buy a gun to go hunting with his friends. Next, Why had the husband saved 400 francs? And when he decided to give it to his wife, what does it imply about his character? So there are two questions here. Why did he save? And what does it show about his character? So the husband had saved 400 francs to buy a gun so that he might be able to join some hunting parties the next summer to go along with his friends who went to shoot larks on Sunday. But he gave the money to his wife, which shows that he was ready to sacrifice his wants and desires for his wife. Hence, it implies that he is a selfless person. So, just so that he can make his wife happy, he was ready to sacrifice the saved amount for her to buy a dress. As the day of the ball approached, Madame Louisille was sad, disturbed, and anxious. What was the reason? A. She did not know if she would fit in with the crowd there. B. Her dress was not ready. C. She did not have a jewel to wear. Or D. She did not want to wear natural flowers. So the answer is she did not have a jewel to wear. So in the passage, if you know, it said her dress was nearly ready, but her husband asked her, "What is the matter with you? You have acted strangely for 2 or 3 days." And she responded saying, "I am vexed not to have a jewel, nothing to adorn myself with." So the next question, in spite of having the dress, why did she decide not to attend the event? Since Madame Louisille had no jewelry or nothing to adorn herself with, she said she would prefer not to go than to have such a poverty-stricken look. So though she had a beautiful dress now, she did not have any jewelry or anything to adorn herself with. She also refused to wear natural flowers that her husband suggested because she said there is nothing more humiliating than to have a shabby air in the midst of rich women. So she said, "I'm not going to wear flowers because there's nothing more humiliating than looking shabby in the midst of rich women." Okay, how was the problem solved? The husband suggested her to borrow jewelry from her friend Madame Forestier. And that is how the problem was solved. Next, did Madame Louisille enjoy the ball? So I've written it in 4 bullet points. First one, she was the prettiest of all, elegant, gracious, smiling, and full of joy. All the men noticed her, asked her name, and wanted to be presented. So even the men noticed her. She danced with enthusiasm. She was intoxicated with pleasure, thinking nothing but the admiration that she wanted throughout her life. So she always wanted to look the most beautiful and she wanted always to be admired. So she was the happiest. She was intoxicated with pleasure because what she wanted throughout her life, she was getting it that day. The victory was complete and sweet to her heart. Next, what shocking revelation did she have when she reached home? A. There was a large rip in her dress. B. She had only modest wraps while the rich had thick furs to cover themselves. C. She no longer had the necklace around her neck. Or D. The necklace was broken and many pieces were missing. Okay, so I know all of you are going to get this answer right. The answer is option See, she no longer had the necklace around her neck. Next, what all efforts did the husband put to find the jewelry? So, what did he do? The husband went over the track where they went on foot until they got onto the cab. So, to see if he could find it. Then he was searching around town until 7 a.m. So, post midnight, they had reached home at around 3, but he went around searching around town until 7 a.m. Then he went to the police. Then he also went to the cab offices. And he also put an advertisement in the newspaper offering a reward if anyone would find the jewelry. But all his attempts were in vain because they did not find the necklace. So the next question, how did they replace the jewel? So the chaplet of diamonds, identical to the one that they had lost, costed 40,000 francs. But they were getting it for 36,000 francs in the Palais Royal. So Louis possessed 18,000 francs which his father had left him. So this was the money that his father had left him. So along with that, the rest they borrowed from usurers and lenders. So people who lend money at very high interest rate are usurers. So the remaining money they borrowed from lenders and usurers, and they bought the jewelry and returned it to Madame Forestier. Next, coming to what changes did they do to their life in order to pay the frightful debt? Okay, so let's see what all changes they made. First, they sent away their maid. So since they had to pay the maid, they first sent her away. Then they had to change their lodgings. So they had to move from that house and go into a smaller house because they could not afford to live in a better place. They rented some rooms in the attic. So the third thing is they rented some rooms in the attic. Attic is the place above the house that is used for storage. Fourth, she learnt the unpleasant work of the kitchen. So until then, the maid was there. She used to do all the unpleasant work, but now she had to do it herself. Next, she washed the dishes, the soiled linen, their clothes and dishcloths. So now she had to wash not only the dishes, but also the dirty cloth, the clothes that they wore. So she had to do the laundry as well. Next, she took down the refuse to the street each morning. So she had to take the garbage, the waste to the streets each morning. Then she brought up water each day. So maybe they did not have running water inside the house. So she had to bring up water each day. Eighth, she went to the grocers, butchers and the fruiterers and haggling with them to the last soap. So she had to go and haggle with them, that is bargain, because she did not have enough money. Ninth, the husband worked in the evenings by putting the books of some merchants in order, and at night he did copying at 5 sous a page. So he not only worked in the evenings, he also worked at night so that they could pay the frightful debt. So this lasted for 10 years until finally the debt was paid. So these were all the changes that they had to make in order to pay the debt. All her luxuries that she did not even realize that she had was also snatched away because she was greedy and she wanted an even more luxurious life. At the end, when Matilda met Madame Forestier, what was she shocked to hear? So Madame Forestier replied that the necklace was fake and not even worth 500 francs. After all these 10 years of hard and miserable days, what did Madame Louiselle think about? So, she would imagine how life would turn out if she had not lost the necklace. So, that is one thing that she thinks about, of how life would be different if she had not lost the necklace. So, it wouldn't be a miserable and a difficult one. And she also thinks how a small thing, a small necklace, can either save or ruin one's life. It's save in the sense it saved her face when she had gone for the party because it made her feel luxurious and rich. But it also ruined her because she had lost it. Next, which among these is not the theme of the story? A. The danger of materialism. B. One should not be obsessed by social status and materialistic items. C. We should not lose items, especially that of others. D. Appearances can be deceptive. Or E. One should be content with what they have. So, which among these is not the theme of the story? Yes, it definitely talks about the dangers of materialism. And one should not be obsessed with social status and materialistic items. Then, appearances can be deceptive. They thought it was a real chaplet of diamonds, but it was fake. And one should definitely be content with what they have. So, the answer, which is not the theme of the story, is we should not lose items, especially that of others. And now we're coming to a very important question. So this is written in depth so that if it comes as a long question type, you can write this answer in the exam. What is the author, Guy de Maupassant, trying to portray through the story? So the first point is the importance of contentment in one's life. Mr. Louiselle is content with their simple life, whereas Madame Louiselle was constantly dissatisfied and discontented. So it is because of her dissatisfaction and discontentment, they went through further misery and hardships in their life, wasn't it? So the story highlights how one has to appreciate what they have rather than yearn for more. So appreciate what you have. That's point number 1. Second is we should not compare our lives to others. In the story, Madame Louiselle constantly compares her lives to other rich people and makes herself feel despair and disappointment. Isn't it? She first compares her life with Madame Forestier, who's rich. Then when they come back from the party, she sees that all the other rich people have thick furs, whereas she has something which is of inferior quality. So she develops low self-esteem issues, and therefore she was never truly happy in her life. So we should not compare our lives to others. Next, appearances can be deceptive, isn't it? The story highlights how different appearances can be from reality. For 10 years, both the husband and the wife suffered extreme hardship to replace the necklace, thinking it was genuine, but then came to know that it was a fake one. Then, fourth one, the consequences of pride and vanity. So Madame Louiselle's pride prevented her from revealing to Madame Forestier that she had lost the necklace. Then her vanity and desire to impress others with a beautiful necklace costed her dearly, isn't it? They had to struggle for a decade because of her vanity to impress others. Next, a desire for high social status. So the desire for high social class and the need for show off blinded her from the value of her current life. So she did not value her current life at all. She kept cribbing and crying that she should have been richer. But when she lost her present life and went into dire poverty, she realized her current life was much better than what she used to think about. And what did she do? Because of the need to show off, it made her spend a lot on clothes and jewelry, making her life all the more miserable. So there are a lot of valuable lessons that Guido Maupassant wants to teach us from the story, The Necklace. And that's the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this video helped you revise this entire story and you can recall these answers in your examination. Please share this video among your friends. And if you haven't subscribed, do that right now. Thank you. God bless. And I'm praying for you.